This is Simon Moon from Simon Moon Music, and it's part 10 in my series of tutorials on how to produce music with Bitwig Studio. Today I would like to talk about Bitwig Sampler. I'll explain why a little later, but first let's listen to the track we're working at and which progresses throughout these tutorials. I must admit that I took the liberty of adding an additional section at the end here. I only reused elements we already had, so I didn't introduce new instruments or new samples, but I'll show you that in a second. First of all, what we already have is something like an introduction, then something you could call an A drop, then a B drop, if you will, with vocals, and then we have something we could call an interlude, and that's the new section I've added. Okay, here's the introduction. This builds up a little until we get to this first drop. Which gets more and more crazy. And there's this part with the vocals. And this finally is the part we've actually started our track with. And this is the new section. So it's much more relaxed at this point and takes out some of the energy and also speed. Well, it's still 128 BPM, but it feels less fast in a way. Okay, even this choppy sound here is something we've already used, only that now I'm using it with extreme plucky settings. So it's the sound here, and in earlier sections it sounds like this. So like I told you, there are really no new elements, but one thing you may have noticed is that, well, we have this vocal section here. And now this part is somewhat, it's not, well, maybe not exactly boring, but it lacks vocals, because it makes sense to pick up some of the elements that we have here. And the trouble is, I don't have additional vocals, because what we are using is this teaser package of samples that comes with Bitwig. There are very high quality audio samples in there that you can use for all kinds of musical styles and genres, but well, it's a teaser, and the samples we are using, I think, is from this female mantra package here. And see, there's only these 5 samples. The problem is I cannot simply introduce completely new vocal samples because this might sound inconsistent. I want to use some from this package, but I want to have influence on the kind of melody I will be playing in this section. So in order to have the freedom of choosing what the lady will actually sing, maybe not in terms of words, but in terms of the melody and the groove, I will use Bitwig Sampler. So let's start to use this right away. But I don't want to use this in this very same project because the reason is, first of all, I would like to set up a preset for the sampler and then simply insert another instrument track that makes use of this new preset. Okay, so I click here, File, New, then there's a new project opening up which has the audio engine turned off. And since we're going to need that in a second, I'll turn it on, and then you notice that for our initial project here, it's been turned off. The reason is that although you can have a number of projects open at the same time in Bitwig, only one can use the audio engine, which makes sense for a number of reasons. But you have to think about it. If you find out that you can't start a track here because everything up there is grayed out, the reason is that the audio engine is turned off. So, okay, now we're in our new project here. And I don't want to start by adding an instrument track and using Bitwig Sampler because the way we approach this is a bit different right now. So we go to the samples first that we want to use. So now we are in that Voice of India bundle here. And just for fun, I would like to go to another package and see whether we can make use of that as well. And let's listen to this real quick. It's probably the same lady singing. It's a bit too high-pitched. Yeah, okay. So I think I'll use the first two samples here. I simply drag them over into this new project. Where's my second one? This one. Okay. And the first thing you notice is if I play this real quick one more time. And now in our project, you notice that it's being played faster. The reason is that this is the original BPM this has been recorded in is 80 BPM, and we're playing this back at a faster speed, 110 BPM. And the first thing I want to do right now is, you see that in our inspector panel here it says mode, and then right next to it stretch, and I changed this to stretch HD because whatever we're going to do with this sample now, I want the highest quality algorithm doing the pitching and restretching and so on. So this is the first thing I'm doing. The next thing is I'm reducing speed to 180 BPM. So this is being played in the original speed. Okay, and now if I double click this and go to pitch and pitch this whole thing up to semitones, then we should be in the same scale as our original song, because it says C here, and this other one, the song we're working at, is D minor, and I do believe that this is not C major. I think this was C minor. Now it's D minor, and the reason is that we've pitched it up a little bit here. So in order to use this in the sampler, we have to make this a sample being in D minor. At the moment, the sample still is in C, only there is a parameter that has been changed in order to represent pitching this whole thing up to semitones. So we have to generate a audio sample that is already pitched up in itself. So in order to do this, I consolidate this real quick. This makes it one single audio sample, and now I click on bounce here. Let's make this post fader. Oh, okay. Well, doesn't matter. Post fader, since the fader settings are not very high at the moment, this reduced volume when bouncing it, and I compensate for that by increasing the gain again. So if I listen to this real quick, it sounds like this one. Okay, and this is the WAV file that we are going to use in our sampler. And the way we're going to do that is I will now chop up this whole audio file, this WAV file here, into individual elements or parts by identifying or trying to identify the phrases this lady sings, and we'll reuse these phrases in our sampler. You'll see in a second what I mean by that. So I pick the knife tool up here, and then I simply cut this into pieces. The first important thing to note is that if I hover over the waveform here and I click here, then it still cuts where the marker is. And since I don't want this to happen, I hold down Shift because I want the knife tool to cut exactly at the position of the pointer here. See? So I do that one more time. I hold down Shift. If I click here, then it cuts exactly where the mouse is, the mouse pointer. Okay, so I add a couple of additional cuts. I hope this is not going to be too boring. Oh, it's actually not boring at all. I wish I could be in your shoes and watch me do this. So exciting. Okay, I try to be fast, promise. Let's cut here. Maybe do some random cuts. It doesn't matter so much. We just have to make sure that we don't cut in the middle of a lot of silence here. Yes, I guess that works. Here, cut here, and here. I hope this is going to work, but, well, it should. I'm not being very exact at the moment because I try to make this as little boring as possible. Okay, here we go. Now I go back to select the pointer tool here, the object selection tool, because otherwise I might make a cut in here if I leave the knife tool active. Now I right click on this sample here and I click on slice to multi-sample. Okay, so the only thing is I don't want to have any effects or whatever being taken over into the sampler, so I click to slice raw, click on slice raw, and here I select audio event. And what we've just done is actually adding a number of audio events in here. And now it creates 28 slices representing the 28 chunks we've just created by chopping this one up here. And if I solo this new track here, which has just been created, and you can see that there's a sampler instrument in here. It sounds like this. And it should sound exactly like this. But the difference is that now this is being triggered by MIDI events. So we're actually playing notes. So if I hit C1 and the subsequent notes, I actually play back this audio file. And the reason is that it took these chops and distributed them across the MIDI keyboard. Okay, let's go to our sampler here real quick, and then I can show you that a little bit more. Now here's something that's a little bit tricky in Bitwig Studio. Typically it's easy to find your way around and find out how to use the instruments and the effects and the knobs to tweak, but in here there's something a little hidden. And you can read here that it says edit. If I click on edit, then I see that multi-sample editor. And if you have a look at this, then you can see that these are actually the samples that got distributed across our keyboard here. So if I play this C2 here, then it plays this sample. If I play this E here, it plays this sample. And for some reason it gets green as soon as I play it once. Well, okay. But the thing I want to do next is, obviously this doesn't sound exactly useful for our track. One of the reasons is that at the moment the samples are extremely different in level, in volume. And in order to level this out, I'm using a compressor. So let's do this first. I use, Bitwig's compressor here. Very simple. Turn up the ratio to something close to 4 or around 4. And I need to lower the threshold for this to become effective. Maybe add a little output. And now you'll notice that whatever sample I play, they are now very similar in volume. Okay. Then, in order to add a little variation, I also want these samples not to start at the very exact point each time I trigger them. And the way I do this, I use this LFO. So this is currently a sine wave with 1 Hertz oscillating, and I modulate the sample start here. So now what happens if I click this? I can make this start at different start positions within the sample. Okay, so this already makes what we have here a lot more playable. Another thing I want to do is I want to increase attack so that the sample doesn't come in that fast. It gives it a much softer attack now. Also lower the sustain level maybe a little bit. Okay, that's good. The next things we're going to do is, how can I put it? We add pitch uncertainty. At the moment, this vocal is singing a specific melody, and the melody probably won't fit to what we want to apply this to. And so by adding pitch uncertainty, I make this more and more compliant with whatever I'm playing, as long as it's D minor or something that fits in that scale. Okay, first of all, Bitwig comes with, where is it? A flanger, I believe. Yes. And let's simply look for a preset we can use. Okay, that may sound a bit extreme, but I think it's useful. Also because it becomes more interesting if we use distortion on top of it. So, but first of all, let me reduce the mix. So it's less dominant already. I also reduce width because we will be using a couple of effects now that successively introduce more and more width, and then this becomes a total stereo mess after a while. So I want to be careful with the width here. So this is this. Let me think. Maybe use a delay before that flanger. Let's see what kinds of presets we can use here. Okay, that sounds like a lot of pitch uncertainty. That's good. Also reduce mix and width. Okay, that's good the way it is. Let's leave it at that. After the flanger, I want to also use reverb. And now this is really going to sound extremely otherworldly, but that's exactly what we want to achieve. So let me reduce the lower frequency portions of the wet reverb signal. Also, again, reduce width a little. Okay, increase reverb time. So I tend to go more for the late reflections now. Use less build-up, maybe increase the size, and a little bit of pre-delay so that only the first milliseconds of the dry signal come through without any reverb. Okay, so that's good. Now, what else? Yes, distortion. I'm going to use distortion before the compressor. That's important because the compressor brings out some of the distortion characteristics even more, but only if it's being used on top of the distortion. So closer to the end of the signal chain. Okay, let me see. I increase drive, but I reduce the mix level and also width again. And I want to emphasize some of the more airy frequencies in here. Okay, that sounds good. Let me think. I think it sounds like something we can work with. So if I play the correct notes in a correct sequence, I think what the lady sings might be a recipe for mango lassi. just didn't find the correct sequence now. Okay, never mind. I guess we'll leave it at that. In the next tutorial, we'll use this preset for the sampler in our song, and we'll use it in a way that we can play actual melodies with what this lady is singing. It won't be possible, not even for Indian people, to understand what the lady is singing, but that's also a bit what we want. We want to have more possibilities when using the vocals than what is given to us by the raw samples. And that's what we have now. We'll use this instrument in the next tutorial and see how we can further improve the track. I think we're pretty close now to finishing this track, and I'm thinking about making the Bitwig project and maybe also the MP3 of the mastered track available to you. I just have to think about the conditions under which I give away the project, but I'll come back to that and hope to see you in one of the future tutorials. If you like this, please subscribe and take care. Have a nice day. Bye bye.